And then at the same time, I mean, even as the economy rebounds and bounces back in those areas, we still have these festering problems with the fiscal deficits and with the unfunded liabilities. So, I mean, can we really even look towards any type of sustainable recovery?
Well, yeah, you're right there, because there's a lot of academic literature that has looked at the impact of high levels of indebtedness on economic growth in countries around the world. And there's supposed to be a tipping point, like around 90%. So when your national debt is equivalent to 90% of your annual economy, your gross domestic product, what happens then, if you lose all sorts of maneuverability in your fiscal and monetary policy, and you don't have the resilience and ability to respond, it keeps things going, and just the sheer mass of indebtedness begins to weigh on the economy. And in our case, we'll be shipping a lot of the money in the form of interest out to the Chinese and the Brits and the Japanese and whoever else owns our debt. So all that money will be shipped out of the country. So the higher the debt gets, the higher it gets, the harder it is for us to dig our way out.
Right. That's interesting. And then as far as public sentiment, I mean, do you think that people really have an idea of what is coming and what is developing right now?
You know, I think they do in the abstract. One of the things I said, in the book, I make the argument that we're going to experience Boomergeddon by the year 2025 or so, which is still 15 years down the road. And a lot of people said, 2025? It's going to take that long for it all to fall apart? I think that we have a little bit more resilience as a country than people give us credit for, and I presume that we'll get some kind of political reform, although it won't be enough. So I think we could probably stretch it out. But there's a lot of people out there who think that, hey, they totally believe it's coming. What they haven't done is they haven't thought it through just how bad it's going to be.
Why do you think that is?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, because most people aren't real disciplined in their thinking, and then most people aren't willing to kind of put the amount of time, energy, and effort into thinking it through. So that's what I try to do in writing the book, and I'm sure people could come up with a lot more than I was able to. In fact, as I continued tracking all these issues after I wrote the book, I kept on thinking, I should have put that in the book. I wish I'd been able to put that in the book.
Right.
But, yeah, it's and also just people don't want to believe it. Okay, they don't want to change. They don't want to make fundamental changes. It's just I guess it's kind of like global warming. People just don't want to believe that global warming is going to occur. I actually don't know if I believe in global warming or not. I'm kind of agnostic on it, but it's just like, you go, what? You want me to change everything I'm doing?
Yeah.
I got to live on less. I got to save more money. I got to do this. I got to be more responsible. Oh man, I don't want to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then when it finally hits, see, this is what I'm curious about, and what I'm thinking could possibly happen, and that while it's going down, before Boomergeddon actually comes due, while it's going down, there'll still be this resistance to change, and it'll kind of be like a dragging, last minute, I have to do it, a necessity, acting purely out of necessity. And then once the bomb finally goes off, and there is this default, and I mean, I don't really see any positive solution to the unfunded liabilities crisis, this unfunded liabilities monster. I mean, once everything explodes, I don't really see a positive reaction coming out of this. I suppose it could be one of these situations where everything goes down and then there's this feeling like, oh, wow, we've really made mistakes. It's time for us to make changes. Although I'm kind of getting the feeling that it could be the situation where everything explodes, and then from that point forward, the people and the politicians sort of, they don't elect to make the fundamental changes. Rather, it looks like maybe writing it off as a massive mistake, but not necessarily a need to make fundamental changes, or a possibility of making changes although changes that wouldn't actually lead us to the opposite of what occurred, but would lead us in basically the same direction, but possibly under a different name. For example,
that's what I would worry about. Jelani, I think that what we need to worry about is we could take what would be a depression, not necessarily a Great Depression, but a depression. You lose 10% of your gross domestic product. That's a depression. And then in politicians, in their desire to do something, they act like they're being compassionate towards everybody and wanting to do something and strike heroic poses and everything. They do these short-sighted things that make things worse. So that, revisionist historians are beginning to say, well, that's kind of what happened with the Great Depression. And we had this really bad stock market crash, and then you had President Hoover was going out and running around doing all this activist government kind of stuff and not really helping at all. And then along came Roosevelt, and he made it into a class warfare issue, and then business just basically kind of like did the turtle routine, just pulled into its shell and stopped investing and stopped spending. And so the argument is the way we responded to the challenge of the Great Depression, we've gotten over every single depression and economic crisis and panic in the history of the United States before then, but the way we responded dragged it out for 10 years, and the only thing that changed it was World War II. That would be my fear of what would happen when we go through Boomergeddon. It's the politicians will, they'll never expect, it's never our fault. We didn't do anything wrong. No, it's a failure of the marketplace.
Right.
And so we're going to fix everything. Yes, sirree. And in fixing it, they make everything worse.
Yeah,
so that's what I really, really fear.
And then this leads me to a couple points that you mentioned. Well, one, this class warfare issue, which seems sort of like a diversion. And then also this idea of fixing by making everything worse, which leads me to the concept of government power and the role that growing government plays in the Boomergeddon. I noticed that you have some free market tendencies. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, Jelani.
That's fair to say. All right. Well, I mean, what role do you think that, I suppose, an anti-free market philosophy plays in this Boomergeddon and just the whole, as you were saying, I mean, the Boomergeddon is a result not just of party politics, but it's a result of various bubbles and excessive spending on various levels, just short-sighted actions on various levels, all adding up to each other and accumulating. I mean, what role do you think that this maybe Keynesian economic policy might play or does play in this building of the Boomergeddon?
Well, here's how I would reframe the question just a little bit differently. The way I see what's going on is we have evolved from what used to be an entrepreneurial economy in which businesses competed on the basis of their innovation and their productivity, into a rent-seeking economy in which particularly the large businesses compete on the basis of being able to gin up business through government contracts, fixing the rules and regulations to favor them, screwing their opponents in competition, by getting laws passed against them or in the courts or whatever. And so what's happening is as more and more businesses go that way and the presence in Washington becomes bigger and more powerful, we have more companies like General Electric, which basically, feed at the federal trough. And so then decisions are made, economic and business decisions are made on the basis of political calculation, not business calculation. And you're going to lose the drive to productivity. You're going to lose the drive to innovation. It's not going to all happen overnight. It's not like we'll suddenly make up, 5 years from now and we have no productivity or innovation left. But it's a slow, continuous eroding process. Mm-hmm. And the bigger government gets and the more it controls every single sector of the economy, the more it controls not only through regulations and government spending directly, but also through its ability to commandeer and allocate capital from one sector of the economy to the other. So we had one of the largest misallocations of capital in human history with the housing bubble, and we're paying that price today. That was largely a political phenomenon to steer money in the housing sector, combined with some innovations on Wall Street. So it's not all politics fault. But the bigger government gets, the more it has the power to just kind of wreck the economy or erode the economy. So that's the role I see it playing. And until American people say, hey, we want to return to an entrepreneurial model, and we don't think government can fix every single problem in the country. The government has certain responsibilities in terms of defending the country and maintaining law and order, and maybe you can argue providing a basic safety net for all citizens. But beyond that, we really ought to just butt out.
Yeah.
Until we get that kind of attitude, we're going the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. So we have issues in politics, but we also have issues in the private sector on the personal level, as far as the desire to develop the entrepreneurial spirit and not be, suppose, relying upon the power of government and the support of government and the intervention of government. Are you an entrepreneur?
I'm a would-be entrepreneur. I would say I'm self-employed right now, and so I would, be great if the business I have right now kind of grew into something
right.
bigger than what it is. But so I certainly have a healthy respect and admiration for entrepreneurs.
Yes, as do I.